Started.
All right, so we can start with Mary Helen Kincaid.
Here, sorry. Sort of
Perfect.
here.
Karen Myers,
Here.
Eric Molander,
Here.
and then I'm sorry, I don't have the list in front of me. Shayla Garcia, not here. And is it Dave Anderson? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Perfect. And he's
All right.
also missing.
I
Excellent.
think this is like time that Shayla picks her kids up from school.
Hmm.
So I'm just gonna send her a text and I think, well, I don't know if I can. I lost all my contacts when my phone died, so it's been an adventure.
So as we begin, again, I want to reiterate the thanks that we have for Janet Olson for years of service, but also to talk a little bit about the next couple of months. We are very close to the dissolution of Penn 2. And as part of that, we have 4 resolutions on our docket today that indicate our preferences as suggestions to the urban. Now, we won't be available to actually implement these. That'll be up to the urban, but we want to make people aware of what our preferences are. And in the first instance, we have resolution 2024-0501 for FEMA remapping. And so I would like to first see if somebody would move the adoption of it.
I gotta get the wording out here. I move to adopt resolution number 2024-05-01 related to FEMA remapping.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, is there any discussion on this? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote on this. Emily, if you do the honors.
Sure. Mary Helen Kincaid,
Aye.
Karen Myers,
Aye.
Eric Molander.
Aye, so that resolution passes, and this will put our resolution in front of our neighbors and the rest of the district, saying that we are in favor of having FEMA remap, which will likely give us the opportunity to reduce the requirement for flood insurance. On the second one, we have a resolution 2024-0502, a resolution of the Peninsula Danish District Number 2 Board of Supervisors to advocate for neighborhood advisor role for the PMLS project's design phase. I'll need somebody to move that.
I'm having fun. I never get to do this much. I move that we adopt resolution number 2024-05-OT02, the PMLS advisor.
Is there a second? Okay, I'll second that. And so it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion about this?
Yeah. Now, how are we going to pick the members that are going to be the advisors that you're suggesting here? Or somebody, whoever wrote this up?
Right, and so it would likely be neighbors that are influential, that live on Northeast Marine Drive and on Bridgeton Road. In the case of the Bridgeton neighborhood, it's most likely going to be Walter Valenta. Walter is a long-term stalwart of the Land Use Committee and has formerly served on the board of Penn 2. And during the infamous tree episode on Bridgeton Road, if we all remember that, he was actually the person that was sort of the intermediary, the diplomat between the Corps of Engineers and the neighbors. And in fact, he was instrumental in those final walkthroughs where the Corps and the Drainage District, Dick Schaefer et al., and Walter would actually tag the individual trees that say this one stays and this one goes. And so he has an extensive history with it and a profound respect for the work of the Corps. And then from East Columbia, don't know, could be an Amy Cooney, could be a Gary Coons. Again, it would ultimately be up to the urban to define those. But I think that given the fairly dramatic changes to the neighborhood on both East Columbia and Penn 2, we're really looking for somebody that has the support of the neighborhood and would be willing to speak for the neighborhood in all of these discussions.
I might add a little bit of history. Gary's worked with the Bridgeton. He and Walter Valenta have a long history about working on making Marine Drive a safe driving, or what do they call it? One of the city's hazardous streets for speeding, etc. He's done a lot of work in the neighborhood in support of that. He's also a landowner that lives on the levee on Marine Drive and it's well connected. He's, I think he says 40 years with the Penn 2 board. And so off and on as the chairperson. And he and he's gone on the walks that FEMA's done. So I would think that he would be an ideal candidate, but that's speaking for him. And I don't know how he feels about it, but I just, I think Karen knows. She's been here as long as, well, probably about the same time that Gary arrived. He used to live in Bridgeton, moved to the Marine Drive house. And so I think that knowing that he has a long history in the neighborhood and all the different work that's been done on the levee, his house included, they used his driveway for access and a lot of the work that they did in that area with riprap, etc. So as for the record publicly, that would be, and Walter Valenta's been involved in everything, and he's about the most, I've always said he's about the most even-keeled, mild-tempered man in a volatile situation that I've ever seen. And like Eric said, he goes way back with Penn 2 and still keeps in touch with Dick Schaefer. So I think that there's some really good candidates out there for East Columbia. It's just a matter of recruiting them and them wanting to and having the time to serve. But I think they would be able to represent the neighbors of East Columbia and Bridgeton very well.
I'm not disagreeing with you, Mary Helen.
No.
I was just curious how the larger body, not Penn 2 or the MCDD, but the bunch of letters, would be able to find people in our neighborhoods. The way this says, somebody's going to recommend, somebody has to suggest who would be good to serve.
Well, I think that since Mary Helen and I are on the urban board, we would be the ones that would say, here are two qualified candidates, both of whom are willing to serve, and both of whom have demonstrated the level of diplomacy and even keeledness that is required for this role. Because frankly, once the reconstruction of Marine Drive and Bridgeton Road begin, we're going to need a very strong and forceful voice for the levee because the rumors are going to fly, and we just need somebody that is going to help gain the support of the neighborhoods.
Well, this is just a personal comment. I think that they would be willing because of their history, but you know, they have to make the decision, and we can represent and say, um, however that happens, recommend them. But I like the fact, you know, the urban flood boards are open to the public. If it's publicized that this is gonna happen, you know, that kind of thing. But I have enough, well, and Karen, you do too, with Gary on the board saying, we're gonna need a representative, and would you be willing to represent us kind of thing, or you'd be a great candidate, or nominate yourself. Take you away from Arizona and Texas and Greece and all the other exciting places you go. But
Trying to spend his nursing home money.
yeah, I mean, well, yeah, like I told you, shrouds don't have pockets, so spend it now while you can.
That's right.
Uh, I think there'll be public information, community outreach, that kind of thing, if we pass this within the neighborhood. Shayla, who's on this board, is the newsletter editor for East Columbia, so she
Right.
would be well informed. And so I have confidence that it wouldn't be hard that to find somebody. And this is probably not proper to say, but Walter would laugh. Walter's easily bribed with a bottle of scotch. So, and I've done it on numbers of occasions. So, you know, Walter, help me, you know, and then wave a bottle of scotch in front of him. So anyway,
I think many people fall into that category, Mary Helen.
yeah. Well, I'm into bribing anybody into getting something done, if whatever it takes. But okay, that's all.
Is there any further discussion on this? Hearing none, let me call the question. Emily, would you do the honors again?
Sure. Mary Helen Kincaid,
Aye.
Eric Molander,
Aye.
and Karen Myers.
Aye.
That passes unanimously. Thank you very much. The next resolution is 2024-0503. And this is to request that the Urban Flood Safety and Water Quality District Board continue to have the agreements, intergovernmental agreements with BES for, basically it covers all of the Portland's roads within Penn 2, and they pay us about $60,000 a year for the services that we render for them. The nature of the agreement basically says that there is it is cancelable upon 2 years of notice, and it reflects an adequate funding for services rendered by Penn 2 and therefore by the urban to the city of Portland for floodwater services on the roads within Penn 2. Okay, so the resolution is before us. Do I hear somebody moving to put it before us for a vote?
Yay, number 3. This is more than I've ever got. I move to support resolution number 2024-05-03 service agreements. I'll say that and then I'll add what I want to say in the discussion. So. Is that okay?
Yeah, I'll second that. Seems like most of these have been before us before, though. But maybe I'm wrong.
Some of my concern about this, well, not concern about the resolution, but for passing it was feedback I'd gotten from neighbors about making sure that what they've already paid for gets paid for. And I know that it's been said in the urban flood, and I've asked this numerous times, and this might just be a repetition of that, but that's a major concern, and especially along South Shore, because of the drainage pipes. And I know that project started ongoing, but, and a lot of people participate in events at PIR, both as attendees, and their pump station is in Penn 1, and they've gone back and forth with BS, and the city's given them general fund to do that. But it's kind of that, and I think we all understand this. It's the citizens not thinking you're doing the right thing. And I think this kind of cements that we are going to do the right thing. We are going to make sure that these projects get done and that funding is there to do it. And that formalizes it so we can say, we have this document. And I think it would bring, I have to say to people, I've been told this will happen and it's in the budget. And nobody's real happy with politicians and government right now. And so being able to say your citizen board and neighborhood supports this, I think would be a great bonus.
So this is really just to say we should continue with the intergovernmental agreements that we have in place where BES supports or pays for the services that we render on behalf to the city of Portland.
Yeah, I think it's also complicated with all the press about how the city's transitioning, combining bureaus, cutting back staff. We have several BES employees in East Columbia that have been offered transfer or early retirement. And there's, last count, my experience with BDS has, I've been told that over 42 employees are being moved around, getting different jobs. And so citizens are hearing that, going to the meetings. And I think this just is like, we're on top of this. We're going to make sure you get what you want.
Karen, any other questions about this?
No,
Again, it doesn't tie the urban district's hands. It's just saying, in fairness, we think that this should continue. So hearing no
I read
further,
it thoroughly.
I'm sorry?
I read everything thoroughly.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. And so hearing no further discussion, Emily, if you would do the honors.
Sure. Mary Helen Kincaid,
Yes.
Eric Molander,
Yes?
and Karen Myers.
Yes,
Okay, so that gets us through to the final piece of business, which is Resolution 2024-0504. And just as background, there was a proposal by BES to change the way in which landowners were charged for stormwater services. That has taken on a great deal of notice within our two neighborhoods. And that in addition to what they would pay to Penn 2, that there would be stormwater service charges levied against them. This has been most notably characterized as the so-called rain tax on floating homes and on homes on Marine Drive that are on the other side of the levee. So in each of these instances, this is a call for the urban district to recognize that Penn 2 residents are saying that we should be fairly charged for the services that are rendered by BES versus the services rendered by Penn 2. Now, for example, this is not currently before city government. So this is really to demonstrate our support for an equitable handling of the stormwater service fees that are being levied. So do we have a motion to approve?
Karen, come on. No, I'm just. Okay, I get to do all four.
You're like,
Oh, go ahead. I want you to have a turn. Okay.
I don't
I
want to.
move- Okay, I move to pass resolution number 2024-05-04 in relationship to stormwater rates.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Any questions about this?
Well, my kind of question of it is, it's kind of like going back to square one because of all the um work that was done, and I don't know how many years ago about the stormwater runoff of paying as much somebody whose water runs right into the river and doesn't deal with the sewers, anything, is, and I think Walter Valento was highly involved in this, pays as much as I do, and I have downspout sewers. I got a sewer drain right outside my house, across from the wetlands. BS is out here almost weekly monitoring conditions of the wetlands. And so I always believed it wasn't fair if you lived in but there was some sort of discussion about living in the houseboat or storing the boat in a houseboat. And there were, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is just a question, probably not, maybe not related to this. But if you only stored your boat or watercraft in one of those like floating garages, I'm going to say, there was some discussion about whether they should even pay anything at all. But if it was a living floating home, then there was contention about paying the same rate as, say, Karen and I do with roofs and drain pipes and sewer drains and all that. So this would keep intact the current agreement that that would not change the current agreement that the floating homes rate that they're paying. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes, it's calling for us to treat that with fairness and equity in the way BES establishes stormwater rates. And the practical impact of this begins in 2001 when the neighbors in Penn 2 that were on the river facing side of the levee agreed to be taxed for their frontage. Now, they don't receive any benefit from flood control, stormwater peak, or stormwater average usage because the water goes into the Columbia. And but it was their attempt to be good citizens and to tax themselves in order to support Penn 2. With the proposed changes by BES, BES would now have a fee that would be added to your water bill that would be about $155 a year for stormwater peak, stormwater average, and flood control that are really services provided by, in large part, Penn 2. And so the neighbors, both in East Columbia and in Bridgeton, are asking for our support to say, we need fairness and equity in this. This is not to say if BES doesn't or does supply some level of service that we shouldn't pay for. It's just looking for fairness and equity in which we establish those rates.
Given all that, and I don't remember the specifics, I'd have to go way back in my books, but there was also issues with Deltawood because it's a homeowners association, and the homeowners association was passing on costs that they were, because there's not sewer drains, there's, no curbing, that sort of thing. And there was, boy, I'm gonna tax my brain. I don't have much of it, but MCDD was not involved because it wasn't part of the coverage. And I'm not recalling all of it, but if we could make it not be specific to Bridgeton or include because of the equity, at least the Deltawood Homeowners Association, because there was many meetings out there, because the water runs onto their property and they had to get special equipment to pump it off. And I could look into the history. I thought of this when I was reading the documents again. And I don't know, Karen, do you remember all of that about how because they're a homeowners association and a
Yeah,
homeowners
but there's only
association.
1 meter for the water.
Yeah,
Each-
1 meter for
each-
the water but they were also being charged for pumping the water out when it collected. Now, we just drove by there two days ago and they still have water pooling in the streets that they drive through. So, but all the people that were active then have moved on, gone somewhere else. And I have a deep conviction to be able to support low-income homeowners that are paying fees that's same as me. And I don't believe that they should be. But if we could just add verbiage to say, to add the Deltawood Homeowners Association arrangements or explore or whatever, or leave it out and do it another time. But it would be something that I would like to explore because, and I have with BES, Jennifer Devlin's retiring, so I don't know. She was a great proponent and advocate on all of this. And sorry, it's escaping me who the engineer was for MCDD. It would have been in like 2017, 15, 17.
That was Adam Zucker, Mary Ellen.
Okay.
It was
And
Adam
There's a
Zucker and then
reason-
Brian Walters, or
Brian Walters, that's who it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
He was out quite frequently and to try to help to resolve how all of the billing was going to happen. The homeowners were, unhappy, but it's what they got stuck because they're basically in a gully. So the water from Marine Drive was right, and PBOT got involved, and DEQ at the state level got involved, and because the water runoff from Martin Luther King and rain collection with no drainage was, some people were wading through water to get in their house. And sort of the solution that we came up with, not immediately, but was, and Portland State did a big study about all of this, about the unfairness of treating low-income people. And I'll look back on all that. I don't know if I have my Deltawood file anymore, but I think that needs to be considered as well, either in another resolution or just add conditions in Deltawood. And I don't know how to do that. So
So I'm going to ask Colin to weigh in for just a second on this. If we wanted to add another whereas, what would you recommend?
I think a whereas, so we have, because the one about the owners of the floating home is specific because of outside the service area. So I think
Right.
below that, this is based on the principles of fairness. So maybe there's something about, if you want to specifically say Deltawood, encourage that something about the stormwater rates representing based on the principles of fairness or something like that for the property owners of Deltawood.
Right, and particularly it would be the services rendered. So if there's still an issue associated with stormwater peak and average because there aren't adequate drains, that we would take that into account. Right, and so I think that it would really be something that we would put in when we talk about the principles of fairness and equity, and in number 2 and number 1, costs incurred and benefits received. And the only time that I get nervous about this is I don't know enough of the details of what is currently in place for Deltawood to say that we need to call it out as a specific area.
And I've
Jim, you
not
had
been
a
in
thought?
contact with them that much other than things that somebody gets their uh, email information from
Got it. Okay.
MCD's website. So it was kind of like a connection. But if I'm gonna ask the what would you do question that you just did, a Colin, Jim, whoever, if you have suggestions, just how would we best represent fairness for Deltawood? And if
Okay.
they do nothing and are not interested, that's another story, but I would like at least to acknowledge them.
Jim, what do you think?
Just kind of brainstorm and say, you may have some additional areas that come to mind. So you might do a more generic whereas, where other neighborhoods may be similarly impacted or something along those lines was my idea. And once we settle, staff can draft something and put it in the chat for your consideration. That was the thought. It might give you a little more flexibility.
Colin, what are you thinking?
Well, kind of similar to that, but looking at the first resolve statement, it is that sort of generic that it's the principle is broad, right? That it's either costs incurred or benefits received. And so it would apply to any part of Pen 2, but I like Jim's suggestion too, that you can have a whereas statement that is similarly broad.
Well, also, I don't want to hold up the passing of this resolution for something I don't know would even if they even knew how to request it. They do have a board, they do have a homeowners association that's changed hands several times over the years. So I think if there's just a simple way and if it's covered in, like you said, the resolve statement, I'm trying to page through and talk at the same time and that's not working. Anyway, so if we could put that in and that would be the easy way out if we wanted to, or Deltawood wanted to be involved in this, they could. I don't know who their current board members are.
Okay, so I think there's a general consensus that we want either to adopt it as it's stated because resolution number 1 would cover the Deltawood, or we adopt it with language that would be an additional whereas that would state that whereas some owners of property, as we have in the second whereas, some owners of floating homes, that we could speak to the need for Deltawood. Any, Karen, what are your thoughts?
I think about it dozed off. I don't have any thoughts on it at all. Sorry.
No, if we just add like a third whereas and just said, whereas property owners who are receiving special, they're not receiving special, I don't know, whereas some owners living in the Deltawood Homeowners Association are treated fairly and equitable. Would that be enough to cover?
For the services and cost,
Yeah.
it's services, costs, and benefits rendered.
Okay. Is it hard to do that and then vote on it now?
I think staff just wants to make sure we capture the language accurately. I have a similar version of that I put in the chat.
Okay.
Once I hit post, I realize it should probably say within Pen 2, but I think that's a given since it's a Pen 2 resolution. And I don't mean to push you on this. I was just trying to capture the thinking. So if this isn't right, please, let's keep working on it.
Looks good to
Jim, I
me.
like it.
Perfect.
Yes,
Thank
due
you.
to the
See, I knew
principle.
I usually say somebody's smarter than me that can do it, and you are. So
I
thanks.
just have the ability to listen and type, Mary Helen. That's all.
Well, I can't talk and walk at the same time, so bravo.
Okay, and so Mary Helen, if you agree with this language, then what you need to do is move to amend the resolution, and then we'll vote on the amendment and then vote on the final resolution.
Okay, I move that we accept the amendment that as worded in the chat. And I guess I move to,
Okay,
that's
and
good enough.
then-
Okay, that's it. I move to
all
accept
right,
the
so,
amendment.
so the movement is in there. I second that. Emily, if you would, please.
Sure. Mary Helen Kincaid,
Yes,
Karen Myers,
Yes,
and Eric Molander.
Yes, so that amendment passes unanimously. And it is now reflected in the next element, which is to move on to take a vote on resolution 2002 2024-0504 as amended with the language that's in the chat. And again, Emily, if you could do us the honors.
Sure. Mary Helen Kincaid,
yes,
Karen Myers,
yes,
and Eric Molander.
Yes. Okay, that resolution passes unanimously. And with that, I'm going to hand this over for comments from our executive director. It's your time.
Good work today. You guys got a lot done. And I would just say I probably have, well, let me rephrase. I got this job and I know I've been charging really hard to accomplish the task laid out in the contract I signed. And I want to acknowledge to my legacy board member colleagues that in my haste and passion for successfully implementing the terms of my contract, I probably have pushed maybe faster and harder a few times. And so I just want to acknowledge the significance of this change and the incredible service that this board and previous boards of Penn 2 and the other legacy districts have provided to the floodplain in our entire community. And I want to express regret for maybe not seeing the magnitude of this on those who came before me sooner. So I appreciate your patience with me. I appreciate your leadership in helping move this transition forward. And I am hopeful that as a result of all the collective work, our community will be more sustainable and safer. And so thank you all for your past and ongoing contributions to the effort, and regrets for any challenges that I have created on your behalf.
Well, thank you, Jim, for that. And today is kind of a momentous day for us, right? It is election day. I am sort of anxiously, I'm with you, Jim. I'm anxiously awaiting the vote. Jim, what's the best website for us to go to find out how the vote is going?
Multnomah County Elections will post results right at 8 o'clock for the ballots that they've counted, and then they will publish. It's pretty intuitive if you go to the website. Emily, let's go ahead and send a link. Oh, thanks. Duh. Good job, Colin. And you need to refresh periodically. They will probably update about every half an hour initially, and then there'll be a longer time frame as they continue to vote. The data that they present will have total numbers of yes and no and total percentages of precincts reporting. So you'll get a sense of how many votes remain to be counted. The county will not call the election until all the votes are in, but certain news outlets may begin to make calls based on their projections of turnout. So with any
I was
luck,
just
it
gonna
will
say,
be close.
the newscasters are gonna tell us why and why the people voted. It's an opinion poll with the newscasters as far as I'm concerned, but I was curious, because I think, Jim, you were a supporter of Sam Adams, and I had a little postcard that went around that caused me both grief and admiration. So it was, but and he was concerned that a low voter turnout would not be favorable to the measures because people that are angry vote more. I just want to get, if you have an opinion, no, I don't know.
I think the turnout is a real question this time. And in talking
Well,
to
less than 50% is kind of scary to me, but
yeah, we should approach about where we were in the last primary, but it would probably a few percent lower is what they're forecasting. But what we don't quite know is who's motivated to get out in this particular community.
Yeah,
You've got a couple congressional races that will draw out progressives. You've got some Multnomah County races that will draw out progressives. You've also got some tax measures that will draw out people who tend to be more anti-government. And I don't think anybody has a clear sense of who's going to be more motivated. And we're going to find out here in a few hours. So
Well-
yeah, definitely some evaluation to happen regardless, right?
yeah,
So.
fingers crossed.
Yeah, I think if this were 6 years ago, I would feel really confident based on the lack of opposition and all the endorsements. But as of today, with the general tenor of feelings about government, I don't know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I teased with a couple politicians. I said, it's all your fault if nothing passes. So,
Well, we're in it together no matter what. So
Well, I
That's
know.
right.
to figure it
That's
out.
right.
I sort of got that answer, but it wasn't quite as polite as that. So,
Okay.
And just to be clear, I did not endorse in the Multnomah County Commission race or
Correct.
District 2. I am in District 1, but I did make that quote to the Portland Monthly
Yeah.
in a very different context. And Sam did call me to ask if it was okay with me, and I said it. It's published.
Yeah.
I'm a man of my word. But just to be clear, I told him I couldn't endorse because of my job and the fact
well,
that I could work with the
he-
eventual winner. So
Sam was reaching for endorsements. He got some good ones. So,
yeah, we'll see what happens.
okay,
Okay.
sorry, won't take any longer. And
So,
I think we've lost Karen.
So, before we move to adjourn again, I want to thank you, Emily, you, Colin, you, Jim, for the work that you did and in taking these thoughts and framing them in ways that the Penn 2 board can be on record in what our desires are. Obviously, it clearly is up to the urban board to be able to follow through. But I think that by providing clarity on this, I think that will move forward very, very effectively. With that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. And Karen, I allow you to call us to adjournment.
It's
Hello.
Karen's nap time and almost mine. So,
Okay.
I move that the meeting be adjourned.
All right. Second and approved. Thank you so much to all of you. We appreciate it. Bye-bye now.
Thank you.
So,
Bye.
take care.